for people on this call, I think there probably is not a need to make a case for the importance of teachers. If there's any doubt in your mind, there's considerable research that suggests teachers are the most important in-school factor to student achievement outcomes. And the scale of teacher education in California, which is the system through which teachers learn to teach, is enormous. If we consider even just data from 2 years ago in California, more than 6,000 preliminary elementary and secondary teaching certificates were granted. That is a lot of certificates. And as Desiree was explaining, how other work has shown in other states, those early career teachers are disproportionately serving California students of color, their English language learners, and their economically disadvantaged students. So the preparation of those teachers, the degree to which they are really ready for the students in front of them on their very first day of teaching, disproportionately is impacting those children. So teacher preparation is critically important to equity issues. Let's see. I seem to be, oh, there we go. I'm going to echo some of the things that Dan said and that Susanna began us with. My colleagues Rachel White, who is at Old Dominion, and Melissa White at WestEd co-authored our research report, and in it we describe the preparation system in California, laying out the various pathways and policies, regulations that guide teacher preparation. We also try to describe what it is teacher preparation is supposed to teach California teachers. We find through a really lengthy document analysis that while the system is well aligned and carefully designed in many respects, we are actually unable to tell you whether beginners are really prepared on their first day to be effective. And that is a broad claim that we would want to be able to make about any system that prepares professionals. And the real reason we are unable really to be able to support that claim empirically is because of data issues, which I'll talk about in a moment. But that said, let me tell you what we do know, what we are able to learn from the existing data, of which there is a great deal. It's just unfortunately not linked in the ways that Susanna was explaining to us. So it's clear from the data that do exist and we are able to access that California's teaching standards, which are California specific, are really the backbone of what you could consider to be a teacher learning system in the state. And those standards reflect a 21st century perspective. It's a professional perspective about what it means to know and be able to do the work of teaching. That vision of what good teaching is embodied throughout the system. The system is aligned to it through various things like accreditation and assessments. The big sort of accountability levers that Chris was mentioning tend to be knowledge assessments, although the state does actually require all beginners that are prepared in California to pass a teaching performance assessment. You hear that sometimes referred to as a TPA, and that is a portfolio-based assessment that describes that candidates gather and prepare during their preparation programs. So prior to being recommended for certification, beginning teachers are required to complete some amount of evidence that they are capable of carrying out certain kinds of practices. The state also does have a view of beginning teachers that they are not kind of finished products before they, when they enter the classroom, which is consistent with what we know about how professionals learn on the job. So California requires an induction period that I think you'll hear about in a couple of presentations. And that induction period requires additional learning under the the guidance of a mentor that's based out in the locations where teachers take jobs. So Desiree explained that there are a lot of teachers, it's a growing percentage, as she indicated, of teachers that are working on what the state considers substandard credentials. By that, it just means people have not, teachers are the teacher of record, and they have not actually finished all the requirements that a fully credentialed teacher will eventually have finished if she finishes her pathway. And so that growing number, despite that growing number, we do know from state surveys that when teachers are asked if they feel their preparation, their California program has prepared them for the learners in their classroom prior to actually starting teaching, they almost universally agree that they feel well prepared to serve all learners. So what we do not know, though, I mentioned that data availability is a serious constraint in answering what I consider to be some of the most pressing equity questions about how well this very considerable system of teacher education is performing. So here on this slide are just a few of the important equity-related issues that we do not have California-specific, though there is research in other states, like Dan mentioned. We do not have California statewide data that could help us know through empirical, systematic data what the situation is. So, for example, we don't actually know if beginners are effective. We know what that looks like in other states, and of course they are less effective than somewhat more experienced teachers, but we don't have a sense of what that looks like in California. We have data in the paper that suggests that their learning opportunities as they go through their pathways are different. We document how that might be the case, but we don't have systematic evidence of that. We don't know, for example, whether certain policy pathways that the state has created produce differentially effective beginning teachers, or sort of perhaps more optimistically, that certain pathways are gathering in certain teachers with characteristics we value. So, for example, gathering in STEM teachers or teachers that themselves were ELs or African American, et cetera. We don't know if certain pathways really are developing and supporting those teachers to be effective early career teachers. We don't know if we think about like an 18-year-old who heads off to the workforce or community college or their regular university, four-year university, we don't know where we lose certain groups of potential teachers along the pipeline. Of course, those people are in California's data systems, but we are unable to track them over time all the way out to their jobs and their effectiveness once they are teachers. We don't know what teachers learn in those beginning induction years, which we think probably are very important, certainly for teachers who are racially different or come from different social class backgrounds than the students they teach. It would be a very important thing for equity reasons to know what beginning teachers are learning during those induction years. And we don't know if induction provides different teachers in different locations different learning opportunities. Those would all be helpful things for us to be able to know so that we could work on continuous improvement in California. So to summarize, the state really has set up, I think, a well-aligned, at a high level, a well-aligned system around a professional view of teaching, and we should not underestimate how challenging that has been and how hard and how long people have worked on that. So that's very important. And productive next steps could be to sort of now treat that teacher education system as a unit of inquiry that researchers and others, advocates, can investigate using linked data to help guide us and focus us on our improvement efforts. There are some really positive movement in this direction. There are some work that's being done at USC. There's some work that's happening in collaboration with WestEd, with the Cal State system. So there is some positive progress that the state could build on moving forward.